Deborah Chong was born in 1954 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, my favorite city in the world. Despite a difficult upbringing, Deborah was exceptionally intelligent and ambitious and was described as someone who had a sweet and childlike nature. According to a friend, she was very innocent and very trusting of people. In the 1970s, she moved to the UK to build a better life for herself. She enrolled in a study program at Huddersfield Polytechnic. There, Deborah found love and got married. She and her husband relocated to London where they built a stable life. But unfortunately, that happy life was short-lived.
Deborah's husband died unexpectedly when he was in his 40s, and his death took a significant toll on Deborah's mental health, and it continued to deteriorate for as long as Deborah lived. She felt lonely and would always seek human connection wherever she could find it. Deborah lived in Wembley, which is a neighborhood in Brent, a borough of northwest London, where she was known for opening her home to strangers. If she knew someone was having financial trouble, she wouldn't hesitate to provide them with money. She would even let people stay in her home without expecting anything in return. In most of these cases, Deborah didn't even know the background of the people she was helping, but being the kind woman that she was, she never really cared about it. The whole neighborhood knew Deborah as the kind person that she was. She had invited almost every neighbor over for tea. In addition, Deborah was very expressive. According to some neighbors, Deborah could be often heard singing from inside of her house. However, Deborah also had her issues. She was known as a very intense person, especially when discussing religion or politics. It was noted that she had a very hard time understanding social cues. According to one report, a former tenant who lived with her said she began to feel unsafe after Deborah argued about her beliefs. Deborah started raising her voice and started getting in the tenant's face. After this, the tenant eventually moved out. She never hurt anyone over her beliefs, but she genuinely had a hard time understanding other people who weren't like her. If she saw someone being rude or mean, her mood would suddenly change. She'd get upset, quiet, or distant to those around her. It was very noticeable when it happened. Deborah was also a devout Christian. Although it's unclear whether or not she converted, as Malaysia is majority Muslim, she eventually joined the Emmanuel Center Church, where she was active in the choir. As the years went on, Deborah's mental and physical health continued to crumble. Her tenant, David Klein, helped her as much as he could, but he knew Deborah needed professional help. Although she had been sent to psychiatric facilities in the past, they never seemed to help much for her.
In August of 2020, Deborah met Gemma Mitchell through a prayer group at her church. Gemma was almost 30 years younger than her, but the two of them still bonded over their shared religious beliefs. Unlike Deborah, Gemma always had a stable life. She was born in Australia, where her mother, Hilary Collard, had a high-ranking position with the UK's Foreign Commonwealth Office. When Gemma was just 2 years old, her parents divorced, and she moved to the UK with her mother and older sister. Gemma was also described as a good student. In 2004, she attended King's College London to study a human sciences degree. Her qualifications included a course called Structural Basis of Human Function, where she was taught how to dissect a human body with the exception of the head and neck. Gemma received the Hamilton Prize for Anatomical Excellence. The award is given to students who display a remarkable skill in dissecting human bodies for research purposes. She graduated from King's College with first-class honors. She later enrolled at the British School of Osteopathy. Now, an osteopath is a licensed healthcare professional who diagnoses and treats problems within the muscles, joints, spine, and connective tissues using hands-on techniques. I know this seems like a lot of extra info, but it'll be, very relevant later on in the story.
We'll be back in just 1 minute. Please stick around for the following ad. It not only supports the channel, but it also supports charities in our area.
You know what's literally on everyone's to-do list that never gets done? Making a doctor's appointment. And it's not because we don't care about our health, it's because the process is such a headache. You have to call during business hours, get put on hold, and play phone tag, and then finally get through only to hear, the next available appointment's in 3 months, so you just don't. That's why I started using ZocDoc, the sponsor of this week's episode, and honestly, I wish I had found it sooner. You just go to their site, search for doctors in your area who take your insurance, read through real patient reviews, and actually see their available appointment slots. Then book instantly right then and there. No phone calls, no hold music. Most appointments happen within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even get same-day visits. Oh, and it's completely free to use. I know we all say we'll get around to it, but your health genuinely shouldn't be something you keep postponing. We don't want that for you, so just click the link in the description. It takes 2 minutes to get that appointment off your plate for good. Head to ZocDoc.com/misery machine now to get started. Thanks, and back to the episode.
After graduation, Gemma moved to Australia where she opened a successful medical practice. She made decent money and eventually bought a nice house in Helensvale. But for whatever reason, in 2015, she sold her business and moved back to the UK to live with her now retired mother. However, she did not sell her home in Australia. Since her license was not valid in the UK, Gemma began promoting herself as a holistic healer. She didn't have a stable source of income any longer. After moving back to London, Gemma's life changed dramatically. She started spending time with people who she had a significant age gap with, and her former friends noticed that her behavior had gotten a little strange. Gemma had gone from being a bright person with a stable lifestyle to someone who seemed completely detached from everything. She stopped taking care of her appearance, and her mental health seemed to be going downhill day by day. Gemma shared a house with her mother and sister in Brondesbury Park, which is a suburb of Brent. The property was estimated to be worth 4 million British pounds, but neither Gemma nor Hillary could maintain it. In fact, it was in complete disarray. The kitchen stank of rotting food, and instead of cleaning the home, Gemma and her mom decided to add another floor to the property, hoping it would give them more space. Gemma and Hillary hired 2 builders to get the job done for a price of 230,000 British pounds. However, midway through the construction project, the builders decided that it was way too much work and left the property as it was. The house was even more of a disaster after that. The 3rd floor was only halfway done, there was scaffolding left everywhere, parts of the roof were exposed, and some walls were still unfinished. Gemma reached out to another contractor who said that they would do everything for around 500,000 British pounds. Gemma agreed, and she did pay the initial deposit, which was around 100,000, but she was left with no money afterwards, and the contractor abandoned the project.
Apart from the house drama, Gemma's relationship with her sister had always been rocky. But in 2016, her sister and her brother-in-law filed a restraining order against her for harassment. Although Gemma violated the restraining order, she only received a conditional discharge from the Northwest London Magistrates Court. Although Gemma was never interested in religion, she became obsessed with Christianity after moving back to London. According to her ex-boyfriend, she was particularly interested in demons and evil spirits. According to a 16-year-old friend named Karen who had accompanied her to church one day, Gemma became extremely distressed during the service. She started screaming that there were evil spirits inside of her and begged the minister to get rid of them. The outburst made everyone extremely uncomfortable, but the minister listened to Gemma, put his hands on her, and exorcised the alleged demons from her body. When he did so, Gemma started screaming and violently shook. It spooked Karen, and she started having second thoughts about what kind of person Gemma was after that. Sometime after that outburst, Gemma started texting Karen's boyfriend, who was also a teenager at the time.
Those around Gemma felt that her behavior had changed completely. People often saw her silently crying, sometimes not making a sound whatsoever. She would spend most of her time reading the Bible, and some of her friends even called her a religious fanatic. Eventually, she became a member of the Emmanuel Center Church, the same church that Deborah attended. After spending a short time together, Gemma and Deborah connected deeply over their religious beliefs, and Gemma decided that she had become Deborah's spiritual healer. But much like Gemma, Deborah needed actual professional help. Sadly, in the spring of 2021, one of Deborah's siblings passed away, and that death only made her spiral even further. She started to think that she was in some sort of relationship with King Charles and then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Deborah believed that she communicated with the two through YouTube and thought that they were sending her special messages. Over time, Deborah became totally obsessed with them. She would stay up all night to write letters to them. She was also somewhat self-aware of her condition and would include it in her letters. During this time, she also started skipping meals. The matter got so out of hand that it caught the attention of the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, which is a legal body affiliated with the UK's police force. Their prime objective is to offer help to people before they entirely lose their grip on reality. They kept a close eye on Deborah's letters for a while and eventually contacted a mental health facility near her home. In turn, the facility contacted Deborah and she agreed to be hospitalized. There, the doctors urged her to extend her stay as her mental condition had become severe. She was eventually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and was prescribed antipsychotic medications. Deborah was released in May of 2021, and her meds seemed to help, but it also caused a change in her demeanor. She stopped trusting people, and she stopped offering strangers her money. At the same time, her physical health was worsening to the point where she couldn't even walk freely on her own. David, Deborah's tenant, noticed this and contacted her healthcare team requesting that they send somebody who could take care of Deborah full-time. David said he had seen Deborah on the evening of June 10th, and everything appeared normal. But the next day when David woke up for work, he didn't see her. After he got back, he could not find her anywhere. Since Deborah had issues with her mobility, she couldn't go far on her own. And David also noticed that her phone and glasses were still in her room, something that she would never leave home without. On top of that, David had received a suspicious text from Gemma, telling him not to worry because Deborah had decided to skip town for the year to spend time with her family near the ocean. There's no details and no explanation for how Gemma would even know that. David didn't buy it. He lived with this woman and he had never seen her pack a single bag. If she were going anywhere, she was going to tell him. At 10:48 a.m., David reported Deborah missing. Initially, police made little progress in locating her. Despite her age and her mental health conditions, her disappearance was not immediately treated as high risk, nor was it reported to the media. 2 days later, David contacted the police again, and after another 2 days, police finally went to social media with a post in hopes that it would generate some leads and draw public attention to the case. But that never happened. The only lead they had so far was Gemma's account of Deborah's disappearance, so they tried to reach out to her, and when she didn't answer the call, they left her a voicemail. After a while, Gemma tried to call back. She left a voicemail saying, "I tried to return your call yesterday. I was getting in touch to let you know that Deborah said that she was planning to stay with friends near her sister's family on the coast. She said that she felt neglected. This was on June 7th, 2021, and that she wanted to leave." Gemma's message matched the one she had sent David, and although it was still very suspicious, she wasn't immediately arrested. On top of the voicemail she had left for police, she also filed a false report through email to a missing persons charity, repeating the same story that Deborah had gone to spend time with her family near the coast. She was getting paranoid about the police having their eyes on her, and she was attempting to cover her tracks by any means necessary.
On June 27th, 2021, 16 days after Deborah was first reported missing, a vacationing family stumbled upon a headless body in Salcombe, England that had been hidden away in some bushes.
Hi, I just found a body.
Oh, go ahead, caller. What's your emergency?
I just found a body.
Right, okay. A body, is it? Are they breathing?
No, they're dead. They look like they've possibly been there like a few days or something, with some flies and stuff.
Right, okay. Bear with me a second. Let's pop this on.
What's the road?
Yeah, what road are you on?
I'm in Salcombe.
You're in Salcombe, sorry. Let me have a look. I can populate, hopefully, where you are. So, Bennett Road, are you quite near the harbour?
We're up from North Sand Beach.
The body was badly decomposed and was clad in oversized clothing. When the police arrived at the scene, they discovered scraps of paper with Bible verses in the pockets. There was also a purse found at the scene which contained a camera, a shopping bag, and an orange rope. 3 days later, on June 30th, the authorities also discovered a head. It was just a few feet away from where the body had been placed but was buried deeply. The body was transferred to a forensic unit where it was formally identified as 67-year-old Deborah Chong. Her head had been carefully removed, and it was apparent that this was the work of some sort of specialist, like someone who'd won awards for dissecting a human body or, an osteopath. Deborah's autopsy revealed that she had likely died from blunt force trauma to the head inflicted prior to its removal. Her body bore extensive bruising and several ribs were fractured. 2 of her spinal bones, along with her larynx, were also missing.
On the same day that Deborah's head was found, Gemma reached out to the facility that cared for Deborah, telling them she had gone to spend the remainder of the year at her sister's house on the coast. Investigators were already suspicious of Gemma, and this only made matters worse for her. If that wasn't enough, on that same day, June 30th, Gemma sent another email to the same missing persons charity. This time she claimed that Deborah had personally reached out to her, saying she felt neglected and wanted to be near the sea. She was watching the news. She knew a body had been found, and she was still trying to spin the story. Police reviewed Deborah's texts and emails for clues, and what they discovered was that just a month after the two of them met, Gemma started asking Deborah about her will. She questioned Deborah about how she could give her house to someone to avoid the inheritance tax. This was while she was manipulating Deborah into believing that she was her friend and spiritual healer. One message that Deborah wrote to Gemma read, "I'm honored to have you as my sister. Accept me as my friend and advise me." Initially, Gemma suggested that Deborah consider donating her house to charity, but she changed her mind almost immediately and told Deborah that she should give the house to Gemma and her family. She even talked about creating her own charity to avoid the inheritance tax. She also assured Deborah that if she gave her the money, Gemma would be able to make a donation each month in her name. Detectives later discovered that by November of 2020, Gemma had begun sharing details of her housing and financial difficulties with Deborah. She frequently complained about her situation, and investigators believe these disclosures were calculated attempts to elicit sympathy and financial support. Eventually, Deborah decided to give Gemma 200,000 British pounds on the condition that she meet her mother first. Although Deborah met with Hillary and agreed on giving the family 200,000, she asked that the repaired house be used for Christian worship. The mother and daughter agreed, and for a moment they felt that their financial troubles might finally be resolved. But that relief was short-lived. After Deborah got back from her stay at the mental health facility, she withdrew her offer. This only made Gemma more desperate. She began messaging Deborah more persistently, urging her to reconsider. In those messages, she framed the proposed gift as God's plan, insisting that the money was divinely intended for her and her mother. But Deborah wouldn't budge. She rightly told Gemma to just sell the house and use the money. But the property had been in Gemma's family for many, many years, and there may well have been an emotional attachment to it. But if that were the case, Gemma could just sell her Australian home to hold on to the family house that was in the UK. But that's not the route she decided to take.
On June 8, 2021, at around 8 a.m., Deborah sent Gemma a message saying, "Until you sell the house, I don't want you to come to me or the house. I'm stressed to the core." Gemma replied back saying, "Peace to you. God has a plan and a purpose for this dwelling. Apologies that the quotes cause you any uncertainty about your decision." On the morning of June 11th, the day Deborah went missing, Gemma texted her again asking if they could meet. Deborah agreed on the condition that they did not talk about the house. Detectives retrieved security footage to track Gemma's movements for the day. At around 6:23 a.m., Gemma was seen leaving her home with a backpack and a very large blue suitcase. The suitcase seemed fairly light, and Gemma wasn't having any trouble pulling it. She took the suitcase through all of London and even boarded public transport with it using her mother's transit card. At one point during her journey, she made subtle changes to her appearance. She put the backpack in the suitcase and put on a hat and face mask. Gemma arrived at Deborah's house at around 8 a.m. About 5 hours later, at 1:13 p.m., she could be seen leaving Deborah's house again. Gemma's clothes were different. Additionally, the same suitcase that she was seen dragging effortlessly before seemed oddly heavy now. Gemma could clearly be seen struggling with the suitcase in the streets. For nearly 2 hours, she wandered around London, contacting multiple taxi companies before one finally agreed to pick her up. The taxi dropped her off near her home, where she was then seen placing the suitcase in her garden.
Later that day, Gemma traveled to St. Thomas's Hospital in central London, claiming she had broken her finger after accidentally slamming it in a car door. 15 days later, on June 26, Gemma hired a rental car, loaded the suitcase into the vehicle, and drove roughly 200 miles to Devon. Midway through this trip, she stopped at a service station after getting a flat tire. Detectives later traced and interviewed the mechanic who assisted her. He testified that Gemma was sitting in the car with all of her windows down when he arrived, even though it was raining heavily. Investigators thought that she might have been trying to ventilate the car due to the smell of decomposition. The mechanic also described her behavior as unusual and tense. She appeared eager for him to finish quickly and leave. The mechanic asked Gemma where she was headed. She said that she was unsure, adding that she intended to sleep in the car, watch the sunrise, and then go for a walk. Gemma also kept the mechanic from opening the trunk. She even made him place the blown tire in the back seat. After leaving the service station, security footage captured her vehicle near the remote area where Deborah's remains were later discovered. The following morning on June 27th at approximately 7 a.m., she returned home.
By this stage, investigators were convinced that Gemma was the primary suspect in Deborah's murder. So on July 6th, officers arrived at Gemma's home to arrest her. She did not answer for some time, and the police were preparing to kick the door in when she finally did. Although she appeared outwardly calm, her physical appearance suggested otherwise. Her hair was disheveled and she looked unkempt. The police informed her that she was being charged with Deborah's murder and was under arrest, but Gemma didn't seem to be fazed at all. She didn't ask any questions and was taken into custody without issue.
Police! Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. There's no answer. Sorry, what's your name?
Sorry, I'm asleep.
Are you Gemma?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Gemma. Just put you on a second.
Sure, sure.
Come on a second.
Sorry, could I ask
Gemma, do you want to come out?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just want to see them.
Hand just over to your hands. Alright, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Okay, you don't have to say anything, but you may have a defence. Do you want to mention one question, something which you later rely in court? Anything you do say may be given evidence, okay? Once we're in your cuffs,
Am I allowed to...
I'll explain everything to you. Okay?
Should I get some
Yeah,
shoes
sorry.
then?
What?
If you want a
just
one sec-
inside.
Who's inside at the moment?
Mother.
Your mother?
Hey,
Okay.
where is it?
If you want to... Oh, can someone lift that up?
Yeah. Let's step back inside.
Is anyone else inside? Just your mum?
Yeah.
There is someone else inside,
No,
or just your
that's
mum?
just my mum, yeah.
Alright, do you want to... Should I bring her out, or...
Bring her in.
Bring her in?
For a minute.
Well,
yeah.
we're just going to come in for a sec,
Yeah,
okay?
Sure.
At the police station, Gemma continuously replied no comment to every question she was asked, sort of like that weirdo Beanish Batul from the Sarah Sharif case.
They've said that the person driving the Volvo waited in the car all that time with the windows down and the front door open, the passenger door open, when it was literally chucking it down with rain and it was windy. Why is that, Gemma?
No comment.
The car stank, didn't it, Gemma?
No comment.
Stunk of a dead person.
No comment.
Stunk of Deborah's decomposing body. Is that right, Gemma?
No comment.
Gemma was held at His Majesty's Prison Bronzefield in Ashford awaiting trial.
When detectives searched Gemma's home, they were shocked by the level of disarray. Among the items recovered were several of Deborah's personal belongings, including her passport, driver's license, and her credit cards. Officers also discovered PDF copies of Deborah's original 2017 will, in which she had left a large portion of her estate to her church, with the rest for her family and charity. There were also several legal books lying around, which contained information on how to write a will. Gemma also had written a fake will forged in Deborah's name. The document stated that 95% of Deborah's estate, valued at approximately 700,000 British pounds, would be left to Gemma, with the remaining 5% going to Gemma's mother. A forensic examination of Gemma's computer revealed that the forged will had been created on July 1st. Detectives also found evidence that multiple signatures had been falsified. In addition to forging Deborah's signature, Gemma had replicated the signature of her deceased neighbor Virgil as a witness. Virgil had died prior to the events of the story. Further investigation revealed that Gemma had unlawfully entered Virgil's former home to obtain personal documents, including his passport. She had also contacted his mobile phone provider and persuaded them to reactivate his SIM card. That same phone was later used in connection with getting the rental car. The detectives also found the red and blue bag Gemma had been seen carrying when leaving Deborah's house on June 11th. The bag belonged to Deborah. Inside the property, officers found a calendar entry marked for June 26. Gemma had written words like collect body bag, see letter, will copy, and 2-hour walk right beside the date. The blue suitcase used to transport Deborah's remains was also recovered. It had been thoroughly cleaned and no trace of Deborah's DNA was found inside. However, a teal towel discovered in one of the pockets was stained with blood that matched Deborah's DNA. Based on the evidence, investigators pieced together what likely happened inside Deborah's home on June 11th. They believe Gemma had gone to see her and that an argument may have erupted over the will. At some point, Gemma struck Deborah on the head, likely killing her. Detectives theorized that the fractured ribs occurred post-mortem as Gemma attempted to force her body into the suitcase. They also concluded that Deborah's head was removed to make her remains easier to fit in the suitcase. It is believed Gemma may have broken her finger during this process. Investigators could not definitively explain why Deborah's body was kept at Gemma's home for nearly 2 weeks. However, they theorized that her travel plans may have been disrupted by the flat tire, forcing her to dispose of her remains where she did. Gemma had deliberately selected Salcombe because it was a coastal town, and she had told everyone that Deborah would be near the beach. Detectives believe she may have hoped that disposing of the body in a secluded area would throw off the investigation, but she was very much mistaken.
Gemma's trial began on October 11, 2022 with the Central Criminal Court of England and Wales in London. The prosecution argued that Gemma killed Deborah for financial gain. By that point, her financial difficulties were well documented. Although Deborah had previously agreed to give substantial financial assistance, she later withdrew the offer, and that, prosecutors argued, was what pushed Gemma over the edge. The jury was told that Gemma's professional website described her as being attuned to subjects in neuroanatomy, genetics, and dissection of human cadavers. Prosecutors argued that this background could explain how Deborah's head had been carefully detached from her body. The court was shown several surveillance footage clips tracing Gemma's movement on June 11th, the day she killed Deborah. The mechanic who helped Gemma with her car's tire also testified that she was acting weird and an old musty smell was coming from the trunk of the car. The evidence collected from Gemma's residence was also presented in court. Gemma's defense team didn't have much to argue. She gave them absolutely nothing to work with. Their biggest argument was that there wasn't any DNA evidence that Deborah was in the suitcase. The defense also argued that she didn't kill Deborah for financial reasons, as her London property was estimated to be worth around 4 million British pounds. Apart from that, she also had property in Australia and around 93,000 pounds in personal savings. The defense team also asked a pathologist if Deborah might have died from a fall. Although the pathologist acknowledged that a fall might account for her death and injuries, it still couldn't explain how her head had been removed.
On October 27, 2022, after 7 hours of deliberation, Gemma was finally convicted of murder. Following the verdict, it was reported that Gemma's sentencing would be televised. Although filming in UK courts has historically been prohibited, a recent legal change permitted cameras to record sentencing remarks by judges. As a result, Gemma has the distinction of being the first woman in England and Wales to have her sentencing filmed. Gemma's hearing took place on October 28th, and several of Deborah's family members were in attendance. A victim impact statement from Deborah's sister was read in court. She said, "Deborah's death was a shock to us all. I find it difficult to comprehend. It saddened me to think she had to go through this horrifying ordeal and tragic death. The trial process has damaged our bond as a family. I cannot start to imagine how they will bring Deborah back to Malaysia for a funeral. Normally, Deborah would be in a glass-top coffin, as in Malaysian custom, but this can't happen. We won't have our last look and touch for one last time. This has been taken away from us by Gemma. For the rest of my life, I will always wonder how she died. Did she suffer? This mystery will haunt me forever." She added that she had suffered sleepless nights after her sister's murder. She added that it left a huge, bottomless hole in her life and that no one in their right mind would mutilate another person in the way Gemma did. She said, "I hope she gets what she deserves. She's the crazy one who steals people's belongings after they died." During his sentencing statement, Judge Richard Marks described the aggravating factors in Deborah's murder. He emphasized that the killing had been carried out for financial gain and described the murder as particularly disturbing. Addressing Gemma directly, he said, "I am driven to the conclusion that you are extremely devious. There is a chilling aspect of what you did to and with her body after you killed her. You have shown absolutely no remorse, and it appears you are in complete denial as to what you did, notwithstanding what in my judgment amounted to overwhelming evidence against you. The enormity of your crime is profoundly shocking, and even more so given your apparent religious devotion and the fact Deborah Chong was a good friend to you and had shown you great kindness." Gemma was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. She will not be eligible to apply for parole until October 21st of 2056. Following her conviction, Gemma's mother publicly maintained her daughter's innocence. She argued that CCTV evidence alone was insufficient to secure a conviction and claimed that Gemma had packed the suitcase for a beach outing. In media interviews, she described her daughter as a silly girl who was really bright but had messed up. She also suggested that investigators focused on Gemma simply because she had washed the blue suitcase.
She is innocent, and I know that, and I'm going to go to the top. I'm not accepting this because it's not right.
On the day of the conviction, Detective Chief Inspector Jim Eastwood, who led the Metropolitan Police investigation, stated that Gemma has never accepted responsibility for the murder. As a result, certain aspects of the crime, including why she kept Deborah's body for nearly 2 weeks, why she mutilated her body, and why she chose to dispose of the remains in Salcombe, remain a mystery.